So my purpose here today is to try to ignite some change in you guys. And I love the word spark because from such humble little beginnings you can get such awesome results, or terrifying. Clicker? Oh, no clicker. We're missing. Let's just do this again. Who's got the miss? Is it for ransom? How much do I have to pay? Where's the missing part? Okay. Did Chris steal the thing?
Tell a joke, Steve.
I don't know any jokes.
No jokes.
Chris stole it, didn't he? Where's Chris from Dropbox?
Chris stole it and store it at the Dropbox.
Lele. We need a backup. Oh, this guy's got it. No, he doesn't. Yeah, he does. No, he doesn't.
Okay. Well, we can take some pictures. Let's do some photo shoot here. Let's do some photo shoot.
Look angry. Look angry. Hey, is this coming off my time?
Nah,
can we extend? Where's
we will extend. We will extend for sure.
Right.
We won't have lunch. We will have you speak here and deprive ourselves of food.
Can I just say, by the way, I love Montenegro. I got here, you know, you're coming in this little mountains and there's like that sort of seascape that's right next to the mountains. You made some recommendations for food last night. It was amazing. We went into the old town.
Thank you.
Oh man, we went to Porto, and the seafood was like, it's just phenomenal. Yeah, man, and people are cool. The night before we were at this place called Canez, and what a great little restaurant. It's like seat 6, and the owner is like cooking up the food himself.
Yeah, it's like a tavern.
It's awesome. All right, here we go. All right.
Well, that's also a startup, isn't it?
It is a startup, man. It's a little family startup. It's cool.
Okay.
And it made me happy, man. It spread social happiness.
Let's go.
All right, let's try this again. All right, my purpose here today is to try to ignite some change in you guys, or anyone else who's listening or who you talk to, and spread some ideas here. And you might want to say, all right, why do we have to do this? Why do we have to change? Oops, didn't click. Why do we have to change? And I love why questions because they're really powerful. And we use them a lot when we're kids, but we forget when we're older to question things over and over. I think we have to change because it's the only thing we can rely on. It's one of the few constants in life, and that sounds sort of paradoxical, but change is constant. And if we don't embrace change, we don't adopt change, we sort of like, the flow goes by us. And I think this conflicts us. We kind of resist change. It's like part of our human nature, and I think it's because we have a very old brain in a very new world. Our brain sort of evolved over millions of years, and all of a sudden the pace of change is super fast, and our brain is kind of like, oh, what do I do? So we crave on the one side stability, but then we try to control that. And I think out of fear, because we fear the unknown, we fear what's going to happen, so we take the sense of control to try to stop change, but at the same time, our common sense, our science, says that you can't. There is no predictability. The real science shows that you can't control anything. Even our philosophies try to tell us that and prepare us for that. So we're a little bit conflicted. And in my mind, control is an illusion. And it's a really dangerous one. It basically gives us a false sort of sense of security. It also creates observers out of us. We stop being active participants in life, and we just take what's already existing, the best practice, the way things are always done, the history, and we accept it, and we don't question it, and we don't change, we don't move forward, we become observers. In a sense, I think we become stuck in life. We get stuck in a rut. It's a process that I call crystallization, and it's an insidious, flabby-eyed devil. Crystallization is what happens when we stop growing. We grow through challenging ourselves. We challenge ourselves through embracing change, through making adaptations. When we stop doing that, we stop growing. Crystallization, we get stuck, we get sort of old. So my answer is, why do we need to change, is kind of what Socrates said. The unexamined life is not worth living. You obviously said it a lot better than I did. So along the lines of examining things, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a secret. All right, well, maybe it's not a secret. Some of you might know this. But as time passes, as we move along in life, our outlook change, our needs change, our feelings change. In the very beginning, it's all about us. It's about me. But as we get older, that expands a little bit. It's about me and my mates. It's about friends and me. And as we get older still, it becomes about your partner, about love, about your wife or husband. As we get older still, the important things become family. So your circle's growing even more. And then it goes to your extended family. It goes a little bit bigger. And eventually, you have this need to impact your community, your neighborhood, maybe even your society. Some of us have dreams of changing the world. But as we get older, like a fine wine, we sort of mature. We start to realize that there is no legacy of one, that we cannot create a legacy of one. We need that team, that society, that neighborhood, that family around us to create lasting change, to get fulfillment. In essence, I like to think of it as writing our own story. We have this urge, especially as we get older, to create the story and grow the story and adopt the story. It's a really important innate desire. And stories are especially important because it's how the brain learns really well. We've been adapted for stories. We've been hardwired for stories. This is how traditions have been passed down for thousands of years. Stories are innate to us. Stories help us sort of identify with things, remember things, sort of cement things in sort of time and history and purpose and put a place to them. The other cool thing about stories is they spread really quickly. A good story gets retold over and over. And before you know it, that story has been adopted and adapted by tens, hundreds, thousands, millions of people. We hear the stories, especially now, so easily. Good stories spread. There is, however, a problem that I think most of us face. And that problem I liken to the duality of a lot of religions. The problem is this: suffer now. It's okay that you've got problems, because when you die, you're going to go to heaven, nirvana, somewhere else, a better place. So suffer now. Just bear through it. Bear through life. And a lot of that is like the workplace. Traditionally, it's do what you're told, follow the process, even if you know there's a better way, shut up, toe the line, punch in, whatever. Do it. And when you retire, you can come write your story. When you retire is when you pursue your hobbies. I'm not so hot on that, because guess what? When you retire, you're old. You're arthritic. You're not really in the best shape to go travel the world and write your story and discover your story, are you? Not so liking that. And I think this mentality is the legacy of the Industrial Revolution, when it was all about turning humans into machines. It was all about profit over people. And yes, it was about slavery for safety. It was about, hey, we'll give you a steady paycheck, do what you're told. All right? Things are changing. Certainly things are improving. We're not in the Industrial Revolution anymore. Time has moved on. Ideas have moved on, especially in the startup and technology industries. Definitely a little microcosm of change. But in general, we have this legacy mentality of profit over life. Absolutely. And that leads to a pretty boring story by the time you've retired. Not so cool. So am I saying, hey, one of the reasons we need to change is carpe diem, seize the day? Yeah, that's definitely what I'm saying. We got to seize the day, because guess what, man? Let's just put this in hard statistics. This is the average retirement age in Central Europe and Western Europe, 65. All right? This is coming from Forbes. Guess what this is? 72 years. Average life expectancy of a male in Central and Eastern Europe. There is no such thing as a work-life balance anymore. Work is life. So yes, absolutely, carpe diem. All right, that's all good enough, but how do we change? All right, we understand we need to change, but it's not so easy, is it? We all know, especially in this room, that the hurdle is really, really high. busting out, starting your own business, making an impact is not an easy thing to do. Unless you're a rock star, you live in Silicon Valley, you're really well known, all the VCs love you, and oh, by the way, you've got this amazing innovation in a system, ecosystem of VCs and mentors and accelerators and startup advisors and R&D labs and great universities and blah, 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 right? But guess what? We don't have that, do we? We got none of that here. We don't even have an accelerator here. So it's not so easy, is it? It's a pretty scary thing, this fear of failure. All of a sudden, we're making this leap. And it gets scary as you get older because you get more personal, social responsibility. Like you've got a family you've got to feed. So gosh, how do you leave that job and make that leap? So we have a lot of problems and obstacles on how to change. How do we get the inspiration, the courage to make the leap? So one thing I'd like to leave with you guys is that maybe we need to take a new perspective on things. We need to change the way we think about making this leap and what success looks like in general. We've been told through the media time and time again that success is GDP per capita. It's gross domestic profit per capita. Success is money. Success is financial. This is the measure of success worldwide. It's the standard. It's the one standard we use. I'd like to say that GDP is a grossly deceptive position. It is not the standard we should be using for success and happiness. Yes, money is an enabler, but that's all it is. If you look at any statistic around the world, we've seen that even though GDP goes up, a sense of fulfillment does not go up. People have more, but they're still unhappy. We have TVs that our parents didn't have and internets that our parents didn't have, but we're not any happier. GDP per capita is not success. Success is a much wider thing, and the science is showing this. Success is social fulfillment. It's that sense that my story is making an impact, is making a change. Success is about creating value that's not just for yourself, but it's for around the community, but also for yourself, but it's together. And it's not just your community, but it's your environment. Giving back to the world, to the nature, to whatever we need, to the ecosystem, as well as to others. And before any of you guys are like, oh no, we just got out of communism, is he advocating this? I'm not. Absolutely, there's no doubt about it that capitalism and the tenets of capitalism have made all the boats rise around the world. But what I am saying is something similar to what even Michael Porter, the famous economist who started with comparative and competitive advantage of nations and all about capitalism and profit and rah, 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 is starting to say. He's changing his tune as well. He's saying business is no longer about profit for shareholders. It's about shared value. It's about creating value for yourself and for the others in your community at the same time. That's what business should be about. That's what model of capitalism should be. So let's reframe things. Let's not just copy whatever the success is in Silicon Valley, whatever the success is in UK or Tokyo. First of all, we can't. We don't have the innovation ecosystem that they've got. We're 20 years behind and trillions behind, and just the infrastructure's not there. The tools that we've got to work with are different tools. We have to find our own tools rather than just copy that. So if we reframe this, what am I saying? I'm saying small is great. Every single entrepreneur says, oh, we're going to make this product global and blah, 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 global. You know how hard that is without these tools? Why don't we think small? Small is where you can make a personal, individual impact on your neighbor, on your friends, on your community, on the guy down the street, on the farmer down the way. Small is great. We've been told that somehow big and growth is great, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's impersonal, and you become a behemoth. You don't know anybody anymore. You don't make an impact, and you don't feel a sense of fulfillment. So what am I saying? I'm saying stop sitting on social media all day, where you have fabricated reality and people putting this false pretense of what they are and how happy their lives are and blah, blah, blah. Just stop it for a little while and actually go out and be social. Go out and meet the people in your community. Discover and observe and talk to them.
The presentation delivered in that voice puts me to thinking. So right now, while it's still fresh, I would like to open the floor for questions. So if anybody has some questions for Steve, if there's like I don't know, like any like inspiration that Steve ignited in the audience, let's either share that.
I'm going to start crying. I'll be like, oh no, nobody thought about it.
Is anybody inspired? No. Not yet.
All right, now the crying's coming. Crying's coming, Masha.
Save Steve from crying.
All right, well, why don't we talk about
there's a guy or a girl who will save you from crying.
You got a
mic?
mic?
Has one guy?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I loved your talk, and when you said that, did I hear you correctly? You said capitalism rises all boats. Was that? No, we're good, man.
Do any of them work? Oh yeah, this one works.
That one works. All right, good. Another, just something I was inspired by is that you happen to mention, it's not really a question, but it's more of a kind of an observation. But when you, what I got in that whole thing was that social change really happens better with people, and governments will always, doesn't matter who's running the show, will always implement in a longer way, a slower way, a more chaos, versus somebody that has passion and it really wants to solve the problem. That's what I heard. I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, thank you. I'll agree with that, and I'd also say, though, that the role of government will follow us. Government isn't a leader. Government's a follower, right? They implement the social policy that the masses or the groups want, or bribe or whatever. But the role of government can be really, really helpful here. So if you find, especially in countries like Montenegro, where things are changing so rapidly and rules and laws are pretty new and obscure and weird and whatever, if you find a better way to do something, I actually think if it gains a lot of following, it's easier to push through implementation. Like, try changing the laws in Australia or the United States. It's like this huge, long process. So I think government, especially in the Balkans, if they get on board with this and start seeing some social change or social value that's coming in one way or another, maybe it's, whatever, in education, or maybe it's in farming, or who cares what, will actually play along pretty quickly. And it's one of the opportunities we have here, which we don't have in some of the more established countries.
Because you mentioned social change, I just want to throw an idea out there that I've been trying to get to the masses. It's called Code Camp. It's about going into inner cities, having volunteers come. Starting at one city, I'd like to do it in Miami, where I'm from. Having volunteers come, computers donated, and teaching kids who've got passion and creativity but have nowhere to put it. To be able to get that up and running, teach them how to code, how to build things. The most inspiring thing for me, I'm going to be 50 next year. And when I see this amazing people here, these young kids, and the passion they have, it just makes me feel like we're going to be living in a better world, even when I'm 20 years older. So that's inspiring.
I mean, look around right here. This is exactly what I'm talking about with SparkMe. I mean, this is social value. Yes. Does the company have some long-term something to gain? Like, if all of you guys go out and start businesses and get .me domain names, awesome, right? They make some money. But you know what? That's really not the point for them. The point for them is, how do we actually start this ecosystem, this innovation ecosystem going? Like, I think this conference right here is the perfect example of what I'm talking about, of how do we balance it so it's good for them, but great for you. You guys get to come and talk to people, get mentoring, do pitches, whatever, get all this exposure. It's a really cool sense of shared value, isn't it? You mentioned education. So another example would be, we're always into how do we teach people how to do a PowerPoint or make presentations or teach people something. Like, Khan Academy is great, but wouldn't it be greater if you actually said, gosh, how do we encourage kids in the school systems to come up with an idea and actually enable them to implement it while in the school, their own little ideas? That is what's going to create leadership, not, I'm going to learn how to read a PowerPoint. So we have to twist ideas a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of examples. A friend of mine in Bulgaria has made a bread company. She went to a bunch of people with abandoned buildings in cities said, hey, you can't rent this out, it's doing you no value, can we use it? They said, okay, we're going to make bread in it, we'll give you some of the bread. Okay, I'll get free bread. Then they went around to really poor people who had no jobs, the unemployed, and said, hey, we're going to teach you how to make bread. They got some flour companies to donate some flour. They make the bread. The poor people are getting to eat bread and getting a skill and learning how to become bakers. They sell the other excess bread. Shared value. It's not about not making money. I don't want to say, hey, entrepreneurs, just go out and be a charity. It's about making money, but doing it in a clever way where everyone starts to get connected. And when you get that sort of connection, there's a lot more loyalty, there's a lot more growth, there's a lot more spread, and this thing can become bigger and bigger and bigger. And now her little bread thing is all around the country, and even now it's moved to other countries. Pretty cool. Anyway, little examples of what I mean by shared value.
Any more questions for Steve? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Here's one. You ignited the spark, man. Ignited the spark.
We got two. It's like ding, ding.
Well, we won't let you down this easy. I loved one thing you said, and that is about the money as an enabler. And I'd like to comment on that one, because I like to see most entrepreneurs right here. Everyone is thinking about money as a problem, or maybe if I could say that problem, they look at the problem as a nominal thing, not as a real thing. And maybe that's the way they should look at entrepreneurship, at solving problems, not making money. Something like that. And the other thing I wanted
Spot on.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you is about the industrial revolution and how the education could be changed in order to break the pattern.
Oh, tough one. Education is pretty fucked, right? So, I think we need to go back to exploring how to get kids to ask questions and do discovery rather than having standardized education of learn X, Y, Z. Because, this is just memorization and spitting it out. It's not actually learning how to learn or learning how to discover and find their own way in questions. There's a school in Brazil called Luminar, which I think is really amazing. Education there, it's sort of upside down. It's kids go to school when they want, when they can. It understands that, there's a lot of poor kids in Brazil that have to work at mom's store to, feed the family, and you can't always make classes or in a consistent way. So basically their classes are just tallied up when they go. So there's no timeline. If they miss one, no big deal. They'll get another one. And sort of, that's kind of cool. It's teaching them geometry by helping them make a bicycle. And so you learn pi and diameter and all this stuff. It's putting as many games as they want in the classroom. And they have even game rooms. And they figured, at some point the kids will get bored and come back. But it's really mixing things up and allowing kids to explore on their own time and their own pace in a better way. It's crazy to me that with all of our little gadgets and tablets and technology and stuff, we can't do more peer-to-peer education, for example. Why can't I understand that you are really great at physics and I'm struggling with my vector calculus and all this stuff, and the teacher is just going at one pace, but all of a sudden maybe I can connect with you because he's really good at vector calculus and I'm really good at marketing, and we can do some other trading, but in a way that's sort of registered officially at the school, that I'm getting extra classes in one area and doing some other credits. I don't know, there's a lot of, it's a huge problem to tackle the education one. That's kind of a loaded question. It's a whole speech, I think. Those are some ideas that I've seen that are working. And on your thing about entrepreneurs focusing on problems, I totally love that. Yesterday I asked a question to Monty about copying. That's why I hate copying. It's just pure cash play, right? It's, oh God, Groupon sold there, and then they bought this Russian company like Groupon Copycat, and I'm going to do it here. We had 93 Groupon copies in Bulgaria, all wanting to be sold to Groupon. 93 or something stupid like that at the crazy height. None of them cared about passion or about solving problems or about finding better solutions for vendors that aren't getting money. They cared about an exit. That's why they were doing it. And I think if entrepreneurs are doing it for a problem, they become much more engaged. And when they're more engaged and more they're thinking actually about how to solve this better. There's more creativity in there. And it's actually a better chance of success than otherwise. And I know everyone says you should start a business only if you're passionate about it. And nobody believes them. But this is kind of one of the reasons why. Because that engagement's not there when you're just doing it for an exit. Oh yeah, exit. Sorry. kind of rambled on there.
Do we have another one, perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay.
Me.
Oh, Natasha, let's go for it. And then
Sorry.
you. I'm blind. I'm going to come down here. Okay.
So the question. You are from Australia and you live in Sofia.
Yes.
And we have heard Maxim yesterday. He's from all around the world and he's also living in Sofia. We have some other people from Western Europe living in Montenegro. Can you explain what do you see here as opposed to where you're coming from and why did you decide to come and live here?
Do you have an hour?
Do I have a what?
Do you have an hour? It takes, okay, yeah, I'll try to be succinct.
No, we don't have an hour.
Kidding, I know. I love this area, you guys. I think the more you travel, the more you might realize how good the Balkans are and how many opportunities there are here. It's, to me, we have far more freedom. Imagine this, right? The aircraft carrier takes 8 kilometers to make a turn. This is an established country, like the UK or the US or Australia. It takes a long time to get any change done on a big scale. We're a little speedboat. If we put our minds to it, if we gather people around and make sort of a common goal, we can impact change way, way faster. So I see the Balkans having a heap of opportunity. Yes, it's hard. We don't have the financial tools and support. But if we find some different ways to do it, we can make amazing change, which is kind of cool. I think there's more freedom, and that sounds weird, but there's more freedom here than there are in some more established big countries. You know, like from Switzerland to Australia. In Australia, up to 13 years old, kid can't cross the street by himself without a fine to the parents. Like, everything is legislated to the stupidest possible level. As soon as one stupid person did something, like spilling coffee on themselves that was hot, oh, there's a rule for that. Just so that it's idiocracy. But what happens is it creates this very, very low level of whatever, of acceptance, of best practice of living. And all the smarter people have to abide by these stupid rules. And you start having rules for everything. I mean, the legislation in these countries is insane. You can't flush the toilet after this hour. You can't do this. You know, my kid put sand in your kid's hair, 3 days of psychological review. He's 3, right? It's crazy stuff. So there's a lot more freedom here. There's a lot of opportunity to change if we want. The food is really good. It's cool stuff here.
Okay.
Life
nice.
is fun. People are more fun. It's in a very outdoor, like cafe culture, like, you know, going for coffee. It's more social. We have an understanding that life is important. It's not work, 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 work. You know, 80-hour work weeks just like admired in the States. Like, oh yeah, that guy's really putting it in. Dude, he's a loser. Why are you working 80 hours? I mean, I don't get it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have a question for Steve.
Uh-oh.
Can I ask Steve anything or? Okay,
Yeah, man,
great.
anything. Go for it.
Okay, so basically,
that was a crazy one.
yeah. Basically, when you mentioned this idea of social value, I was trying to think about the companies that actually try to promote this, and I came up with 2 ideas, 2 concepts. Actually, not 2 concepts, it's the same concept with 2 companies. So the one is DreamHost. It's a hosting company that is owned by its employees. But the funny thing is, it's not like they would give a share and like tell you, okay, now you have shared the company, go shut up and code. It's more like they would literally put up on their website, we wouldn't sell out to the bigger company. They would also have meetings where we discuss how they would streamline the company every day. So that's the one thing. The other, maybe better known example would be Zappos.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So can you just comment on that a little bit and maybe just throw a couple of other examples on top of your head?
I dig Zappos a lot. I mean, I haven't worked there, but I've
You
read
worked for
about
Zappos?
them. No, I haven't,
Okay.
but I really like them. So what I like about Zappos is you take the traditional call center stuff, which is basically saying, employee, I don't trust you, because here's a script. Read exactly this. And oh, by the way, we're going to have somebody who can sometimes eavesdrop on you to make sure you're reading exactly that and treating our customer in the way I want you to treat that customer. And oh, by the way, it's how quickly can we get through calls? Dude, it's insane, right? Like, our old way of doing call centers or working like Zappos is doing, I mean, because they're mostly like online call center driven, is nuts. If you think about it, how much money do you spend trying to get marketing and advertising attention for somebody, for them to spend 5 seconds looking at your ad or your whatever? It's billions, right? But then all of a sudden you actually have a customer calling you, needing some help, which is a total touch point and opportunity to like ask them stuff, to get feedback, like somebody was saying yesterday, Ryan, you know, just to interact with them, and you're trying to just get rid of them so fast, right? So Zappos said, that's stupid. Let's actually like spend as much time as you want. And oh God, let's actually trust our employees since we hire them and not give them a script and just let them do what is sensible, right? Let's give them sense of responsibility. And when you have that sense of responsibility, they get more ownership over this in their jobs and more satisfaction. And that's why Zappos has far lower turnover than any other company. I mean, they even give a bonus if you quit, because they don't want you there if you don't want to be there. They realize that it's actually more damaging to them to have an employee that's unmotivated and like just doesn't want to be there because they're going to give crap customer service, and it's actually cost them more than if they just get out. So there's like this $5,000 bonus for quitting. So it's really cool. I like how Zappos has turned it upside down. They've rethought these questions and problems and given some sort of personal responsibility. DreamHost is really similar. We actually use DreamHost. I've been a user for over 10 years of DreamHost, which is pretty crazy. And I've seen, like when I email them, they really take like their support. They take this job with some pride. Like I'm still with them after 10 years, even though there's cheaper and lots of hosting companies, because I have this feeling of loyalty that I can only get through the connection I've had with these interactions or these stories with these guys that aren't just, you know, a call center in India that doesn't give a crap about me, but it's actually a dude in LA at one of their places who intimately understands my problems. So yeah, it's a really good example.
Another funny thing about DreamHost is that they put up biographies of their employees.
Yeah.
And do you know the story?
No.
That they put up the biographies, and it's like, but it was up to employees to edit the page. And whenever they wouldn't edit the page, they would be like blank or something like, okay, this employee doesn't care about his bio, so we're going to put whatever we want here. Yeah, that was kind of funny.
I fundamentally think that, I think maybe social media is helping, that business is getting more personal, which is nice, and that's accepted. It used to be you had to wear your business suit and talk in business language and be very formal and not be emotional, and you didn't have any character. There was no soul, really. It was just this business. And now when companies are starting to say, hey, it's okay to be human.
It's not faceless machine behind this, it's human.
Let's put a face and a voice. And you know what? Like, I've done this. I have a Facebook page for the company, and I made every employee an admin of the page, right? And sometimes, man, I'm just like, oh my God, they put that up? Like, because customers can see this too. It's like some crazy thing about, you know, swearing and God knows what and sexual things and whatever. And I'll just be like, ah. But, you know, on the flip side, we interact best with customers when we're similar, right? A customer's going to like you or don't like you, and the customers that grow are the ones that like you and are culturally similar and like you have a vibe with. So probably it's better because, you know, we don't want those customers that we don't really have a good fit with anyway. So if a customer reads that and it's like, that's kind of funny, I can't believe they're doing that, that's the kind of customer we want. Yeah, okay. This human voice is important.
True. So basically, I think we're a bit behind the schedule, but still, I will ask one more question. And I think
that wasn't fair, man. We didn't have that thing for like 3 minutes.
Exactly. So I'll ask one more question, and audience can ask one more question. So basically,
this girl's got a question. We'll let her go.
Yeah, I do. And thanks to moderator for cutting me off for like almost 10 minutes. So,
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You got spanked.
Well, I do applaud your presentation. You're a really nice guy, but I'm not buying it. I mean, it's just too much optimism. It's not applicable. It's not realistic. But hear me out. So I think you touched an excellent point at the beginning, which is crystallization, which is basically being slave to your habits, right? Mm-hmm. Because you need to function in a world that doesn't function around you. You need to pay your bills. You need to eat. You need to dress yourself, right? Yeah. And when you work a lot, so many hours, and you're just in the environment that cannot even remotely pay you enough to fulfill even your basic needs, how do you basically get out of the rut? How do you kickstart the process? How do you even get, you know, to the point where you say, okay, this is the start of the, you know, paradigm shift. This is the start. This is the moment where I can change my perspective. Because, again, another question: once you spark that thought or deed or whatever you do, or whatever you think, or whatever, you know, is the catalyst for the process, how do you keep the ball rolling? Because odds are against you, and what you're going to do?
All right, so it sounds, yes, it's hard, right? It's not easy, because you know, you got to live, you got to eat. And that's kind of what I was going with in the sense of starting small and starting local. But, you know, we like to bag big companies a lot in the startup world. And I think there's actually a pretty good role for them here. One is you can try to change the company you're in. Like, it can be done. Amazon is changing a lot. I spoke to the CTO of Amazon. I was really impressed with some of the changes they're doing. So they're big, but they're really trying to make a great workplace. So maybe you can change what's inside. The second is, and this is weird, I mean, it's hard to leave without a safety net, right? You need 6 months to live. So I know that sounds dumb, but I would do it while you're at work. Go work at a big company. I'll give you a good example of a girl I just met. She was working at HP because she needed cash, right? And they pay reasonably well. So she's working at HP, and she was saving every damn euro cent. And now she finally saved enough for 6 months of runway of her life, right, of paying bills and eating, and has started her own organic bakery called Vanilla Kitchen. And within 3 months, she's already had 9,000 likes on her Facebook page, a lot of engagement. Everyone's excited for when they're going to open. And she's actually done that just organically by herself while saving money, working at a big company, leveraging that big company. Yeah, I guess it's in some sense like, you know, we have this depression from sort of the industrial life, from working hard, and when you get home, you just want to relax or whatever. And you've got to find some internal way to say, no, enough, this isn't good enough, I am going to do something else. And I know it's hard. It's like I face the same thing sometimes. I come back from work, which is exciting for me anyway, but then I want to do some hobbies like learning language and all this stuff, and like all of a sudden the last thing I want to do is more work. So it is tough. But whatever it is that motivates you, maybe it's, I don't know what, but yeah, maybe it's, you know, for me, like another one I know is a girl who's into farming.
We have 1 more minute.
Oh,
one more minute, Steve.
Mafia in farming, right? And so the little poor farmers are having a hard time getting their products sold because the mafia forces them to sell to them. And so she's doing this thing, whatever, a little service to try to get small local farmers to sell into Sofia, into the capital, skirting around the mafia. But she's doing it because, like, her baba was one of those, selling cheese and making yogurt, and she couldn't sell and make money because the stupid mafia kept pushing her. So if you identify with a problem, maybe that's the inspiration you need. Maybe you got to find that problem and be like, enough, I am going to right a wrong, I'm going to stop this injustice. I don't know, maybe that passions you.
Okay, give it up for Steve.